Ay, magandang tanghali po. Ayan, nag-enjoy ho tayo sa tanghalian. Okay ho, baka pwede na ho tayong bumalik sa ating mga upuan at lamesa. Sa loob po ng 3 minuto ay magsisimula po tayong muli. Salamat po. Good afternoon again, everyone. Did everybody have a good lunch? Are we now ready for our next session? Okay, we're back. At this point, we'll move on to pitching demonstrations. We'll have two technologies for this afternoon that will be pitched from two ITSO host institutions. Okay? And after each of them will be given 10 minutes for their pitching demo. And after that, we will have a panel of critics. In that panel, there will be Mr. Dan Winfield, Mr. John Fraser, and our Director General, Attorney Nelson Laluces, and of course, Mr. Earl Valencia. Okay, I believe everybody's ready. Let's now welcome our first ITSO host institution that will pitch from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Manila. Let's call in Mr. Casey B. Victorio.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Casey Victoria from PUP Manila. And for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to present to you the wonders and warnings of electricity. So everybody, each and every one of us has experienced the wonders of electricity, right? Yes, of course, you have your mobile phones, you have your computers, you have your laptops, you have your tablets. But then again, most of us find electricity consumptions as expensive. And everybody wants to conserve when it comes to electricity consumption. Are you guys find electricity expensive? Who wants to conserve electricity? Yeah, okay. Expensive is for you guys. Electricity expensive. So, can you find someone who can dance for you for the next 6 hours for the rate of 12 pesos per hour? So, if that's the case, some of us will find electricity expensive. Some of us will find it not so expensive. But I think there is a right way to consume electricity. And for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to share to you an effective way, an innovative way to conserve electricity, to have your electricity consumption in its utmost efficiency with the use of the gadget, what we call unplug, or the universal phantom loss unloading gadget. So, um, so everybody wants to conserve electricity. So with this, unplug is no less like all the energy saving devices available in the market. So basically, we have power strips, we have the time delay locks, we have the power factor correctors. But most of them exhibits these properties. It can be inefficient, it can be expensive, and most of them are misleading. So what we're looking for is an energy saving device that actually the other way around, which is efficient, affordable, environmental friendly. So I'm introducing to you the unplug or the phantom load and phantom loss unloading gadget. So basically, unplug is a device that you're gonna attach to your household appliances with standby powers. So once the appliance has been turned off or in standby mode, the unplug will count a few seconds and then electrically disconnect your appliance to the power source. So ideally, this incurs savings in monetary value, and this savings brings down the demand of your household in terms of electricity. More so, it provides safety for your family from untoward incidences with comes to electricity, and indirectly contributes to greenhouse gas emissions. So more so, in the laboratory conditions and in our regular testing, unplug has, uh, sorry, consumption, less the consumption to 92%. So this means at 9.6 per kilowatt hour Meralco bill, it's equivalent of a monthly savings of equal to one hamburger. So that's for one appliance only. So imagine that you have the unplug for the next 10 years, that's equivalent to 120 hamburgers or 2,700 pesos. So that's a lot of hamburgers for your barangay or for your community. So ideally, we project unplug to be 300 pesos in the market, and you can have your investment recover in just 1 to 3 years, depending on um, market proficiency and other technical viabilities. So now, if we are looking for an efficient way to consume our electricity, if we want an affordable way to save energy and we want to be environment friendly, then we start to unplug this phantom loss and plug your appliance with our unplug gadget. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Okay, the next presenter from another ITSU host institution from the University of the Philippines, Manila. The author has been a two-time Alfredo M. Yao National IP awardee. Let's call in Dr. Grace Yu.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'm looking at you because I'm just wondering if any one of you here at this room hasn't experienced any pain at all. No? Nobody says. Oh. So it seems that everybody has experienced pain. So whatever. Because everybody may be experiencing any one of them. Definitely headache. And lastly, dysmenorrhea. Pain or the inflammation is a big market because 50% of elderly in US suffer from osteoarthritis, they have ache, long-term pain, and other indications like dysmenorrhea, which is very common among young ladies or young adults. So let's face it, whatever pain you're suffering from, you prefer to take pain medications, right? And it seems that from this graph, you can see that it entails a lot of millions of dollars which are spent. These are the leading users and the manufacturers. People from US, Japan, Germany, and so on. And the manufacturers are the GSK, Bayer, Johnson & Johnson, or Novartis, to mention some. And the sales of over-the-counter painkillers in U.S. in less from so you can see from the traditional non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, it costs them a lot, and they are gaining a lot, no? But over-the-counter painkillers are very effective. There's no doubt about it. But all of these have the potential for serious side effects because they may cause stomach irritations and ulcers, renal failure, and heart disease. Then what? The question of this poor mom or the poor grandma, do we have something like a natural anti-inflammatory drug? The answer is yes. There is a natural anti-inflammation, anti-pain health product which we now is introducing to you. And the team is composed of yours truly, the national scientist, Dr. Lourdes De Cruz, and of course, the Department of Science and Technology as our financing partner. And this is the first time in the team to have a community of IPs as part of the team. And what we have the RBM products, the RBMT, or in capsule form or in the tablet form. Why am I introducing these products to you? I am proud of this because it comes from endemic plant food. What do I mean by endemic? Endemic means that this plant can only be found and only grown in the Philippines. So this is ours. And this is plant food consumed by the IPs for centuries and decades and etc. And they are still alive. That's why it is not harmful. And more so, we have done a lot of LD50 experiments in the laboratory, and we got the same and the same and the same. So at least I know it's not harmful. And it has a very comparable anti-inflammatory activity with existing drugs, which I will show you later. And I can consider it as COX-2, selective inhibitor. Later on, you will see it. And we have isolated the pure compounds responsible for this COX-2 selective activity. Are you ready? Are you ready to see it? Go. Okay, now, here, yes. So this is the figure that I love most to show, no? Because oh, sorry. Where is the pointer? Oh, okay, there's no pointer. Okay. Let me just tell you the story about this graph. Well, at the rightmost, from the methanol, actually it's a methanol extract or the crude extract, the 1, 2, 3, and 4, these are the pure compounds isolated. And they were compared to the existing drugs, aspirin, the Celebrex, and the vials. They were compared to the COX-1 and the COX-2 inhibitory activity. You may be asking me, what's the COX-1 in COX-2, Grace? Come on, we can't understand it. Don't worry, I will tell you. Okay, this is the story behind it. The COX-1 pathway, that one which is constitutive, and it is all found usually in the stomach. The COX-1 is a cyclooxygenase enzyme. And this enzyme, if it is inhibited, the prostaglandins it produces are prohibited as well. Okay? The COX-1 pathway produces, in other words, the COX-1 pathway produces prostaglandins which protect your stomach lining. The COX-2, which is induced, you can find it anywhere in your body, produces prostaglandins which may cause inflammation, fever, or pain. Therefore, it is not good to inhibit COX-1 in order to protect your stomach, right? And it is also good to protect the COX-2 because it will inhibit inflammation. And that is the principle behind the activity of the Celebrex. Now, let's proceed to this graph again. From the 1, 2, 3, 4, look at the COX-1 activity. It is lesser than the COX activity, comparing to the Celebrex. The Celebrex inhibits COX-1 by 40.7, but inhibiting by COX-2 by 72.2. And Celebrex is considered as a COX-2 selective. Right. So looking at the pure compounds, which are the major compounds of this plant material, looking at this 47, 43, 33, these 4 compounds inhibiting COX-1 almost comparable to the Celebrex. And well, anyway, it's significant. From 73, 71, 75, 78, comparable to the COX-2 inhibition to the Celebrex. Look at aspirin. Aspirin inhibits COX-1 by 68 and COX-2 by 26. That's why aspirin can cause ulcer. Okay? Now, let's proceed. So these are the RBM products. Now, after we have formulated these RBM products, we tested again for its anti-inflammatory activity. And we found out that the colored ones, so these are our RBM products compared with the indomethacin or compared with the positive control, which is the anti-inflammatory drug as well. The black one is the control, so without treatment at all. Now, selective COX-2 inhibitors are earning a lot. But by 2016, these drugs may go generic. So what would be the better replacement? Well, in the Philippines, well, what we can now offer, we can have first we can do the pain supplement. And then as we market the pain supplement, we are already formulating or developing the drug or in the pure compound form. So, for that, the barriers to competition, we are now ready for licensing. You may like it, go. No? And we can offer the lower prices than competitors. Definitely, yes. And of course, we can give you the exclusive access to raw materials, technology, and formulation. And for the market projections, well, I'm not good at this. Well, anyway, so scratch it. Okay, yeah. Go, okay, come on. Okay, move, and well, anyway, after that, after presenting to you that anti-inflammatory drug or tablet or capsule, whatever form, how about your thirst? So because of this property, we have seen that we can also formulate, okay, go back. We can also go from, it's so fast, you know, I have to go back. So we can also formulate another sports things. Why? Filipinos are getting so active. Filipinos are getting so tense, no? There's always stress. In you know, in the, well, already in the EDSA, in the C5, you have the stress already. Take our sports thing, take our RBM sports thing. You have the antioxidant, which is rich in calcium, potassium, and phosphorus, very natural. It is also energy, and moreover, it has an anti-pain and anti-inflammation well rolled into one. Take them, okay. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the natural anti-inflammation, anti-pain health product, which we are introducing to you right now. And so, therefore, if you are interested, you may call Dr. Eloy Barcelo, our TTBDO director. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc Grace. And now for our critiquing part, can we now call on stage Mr. Dan Winfield, Mr. John Fraser, and our very own Director General Attorney Nelson Laluces of IPOPHIL, and of course, Dr. Al Serafica, sir, of USAID Stride. And PUP and UP Manila, Casey and Doc Grace,
Hello, hello. Yeah. So there was actually we didn't when IPOPHIL asked us to select from a panel, a host of pitching abstracts. We kind of wanted to just be a demonstrative, not really a comprehensive one. Kaya ito yung dalawang napili namin for this. And clearly, I hope you had a fun time seeing it and visualizing yourself to be doing it next time around. But clearly, to us, they're one of the two that brings forth the two areas from the natural product side, biodiversity side of development in the Philippines, and also on the energy consumption side that we've had. So I think I'll probably ask Atty. Nelson first to give us a background on how they found this group. They have actually a roster of about 12 technologies that they offered to us, and we selected at least two to pitch.
Yeah. Okay. Well, these two products or would-be products present a very interesting insights into what the Philippines need now. I think it's really meant for local consumption, but eventually, of course, we will not be surprised if these products will be global. So that's how we saw these products. Thank you.
So I think this is probably a question for both. I like that both Dan and John have almost like had experience with Taxol, that being an active ingredient coming from a plant. Because again, I was in the US for 24 years. I came back here 2 years ago. And they asked me, Al, after you've gone around for 2 years looking at various technologies in the various universities represented here, where do you think is the best option for us to be able to get into the global stage? And I said, it's our biodiversity is one area where I believe truly that we may be able to find something of substance, of import. So that's why when we selected this COX inhibitor, it's one of those, even though we know for a fact that it will probably be still a couple $100 million away from a real, well-tested, well-marketed, well-distributed product, a Celebrex or Vioxx knockoff. But follow on that track. Can you comment on this potential of such a product coming from here?
All right, I'll start off. First of all, we'll talk about the phantom loss device. I think I can be easily convinced that there's a real problem. I think the presentation of the box and how it works and its benefits was a little too technical. It was the return on investment we were told was anywhere from 1 to 3 years, if I understood it correctly. And in order to really understand that, I could not understand from the presentation what the cost of the box was. And therefore the cost of the box versus the savings was a little unclear what the linkage was, okay?
I think he said 300 pesos for the box and a return of about.
Okay. It was a little unclear. I look upon these presentations as kind of business models. Would I invest in it? And so the presentation was about the problem, the solution in terms of the box. But what wasn't presented, which perhaps is not part of what this is about, was, okay, where's it going to be manufactured? How's it going to be distributed? And if I really, really like it, where can I go buy one? Even theoretically, a discussion of, we think we will manufacture this somewhere, make it up, and we'll distribute it through local hardware stores or electric appliances, or we'll ask the local utility to make it available on a loan basis for individuals to make it easier to get access to the box. And that was not discussed, but I was convinced that there was a problem. This could well be a solution. I have to tell you, looking at the box, I would take it as a prototype. I think a few minutes designing something that looked a little more appealing in the home might make it a little more attractive. That doesn't degrade the presentation. It's just a suggestion that as you move forward, you think about things like this. It's an interesting problem that I hadn't thought about. Well, I had thought about it actually, because you're told nowadays if you leave your appliance plugged in, there's usually a little light on the appliance that stays lit, which is the problem. Okay, it drains electricity and you're paying for it. Be perfectly honest, once I learned of this problem 3 years ago, exactly correct. You yank the plug, okay, problem solved. So the alternative to solving the problem wasn't well described. On the other hand, from the work that seemed to be done, and if indeed it was priced like that and the savings, I'd be interested in buying it to try it out, okay? So I was impressed. It was clear. It was to the point, a tiny bit, a little too technical, one or two of the slides, but I thought it was well done.
So I'll comment. I was, first of all, favorably impressed with both presentations in terms of the kind of excitement and passion that the individuals brought. In fact, I was about to get up and pull my wallet out for Gracia, but so the passion's there, and that's clearly one thing you want to bring as part of the pitch, that you're really passionate about the idea. I think in terms of the box, as you referred to it, I think thinking about creative business models for that is important, because there's an entire history of energy saving devices that have never succeeded, because consumers, they don't make decisions based on return on investment frequently, right? So if I've got to buy another item that plugs in and is, it's just something else to have to buy to include there. So the idea of thinking about, well, how do you get maybe utilities to be interested in subsidizing it? Or is there a way that it's actually built in as part of the appliance? So the appliance manufacturers are the route. So really thinking about what's the route to market, I think is pretty critical on that one. I'll move on to Gracie's in terms of the presentation there. I missed the first part of the first presentation, getting back in, so I apologize for that. But on hers, it's important in the first 30 seconds of the pitch is to convince people to listen to the rest. And I didn't hear that in hers. She started more just kind of talking about broadly pain in general, et cetera, and I didn't know where she was going to go with that, right? So it's easy for me to lose my train of thought around that. So she needs to summarize in that first 30 seconds why I need to listen to the rest. So where are you going with this, and what might it mean for me? So I really would have liked to have seen that much more up front. It got a little bit too technical in the sense of expecting me to interpret, COX inhibitors, et cetera. I think that could have been presented in a simpler way. The message appears to be there, but kind of lost me in that, and I even know a little bit about my biomedical field, and a lot of investors may not. You're not trying to get them to understand the science, behind it necessarily. It's the convincing argument, and frequently that'll come from trying to establish the reason for them to believe. So what's the actual reason they should believe your claim? And your graph may have done that, but it didn't really come across to me in that way.
Okay, can I comment on the second, the pain? Obviously, a lot of passion, a lot of homework done. I must have missed it, but the test animal was not discussed. So it was unclear to me whether these were studies in rats or individuals, humans. If again, there was a focus on the product and the understanding of what it was about and the pain, I think, if I might suggest in additional presentations, the fact that you've got an indigenous group involved is a major element that I don't think is stressed enough, particularly in the sense that I was waiting to hear you say we're going to be sharing the profits when they arrive with this group, and therefore encouraging the use of native materials gathered by indigenous people that brought their folk wisdom to the fore that we were able to turn into a useful product. It was unclear to me what the regulatory regime here is in the Philippines. I'm assuming this is over the counter. In the United States, if you make a claim of reducing pain, the FDA gets interested, whether you want them to or not. So the regulatory environment and how you might address that, which is of course a future issue. The Taxol drug that I referred to, one of the major problems that the big pharma had was they had to source the material naturally to start with. And it turned out that they could not globalize the product from such natural sources. And therefore they asked 6 chemist groups to try and come up with a semi-synthetic route, which allowed the benefits of the drug to be globalized. Dr. Yu did not make the claim that this was going to be a global product, perhaps start in the Philippines and grow from there. But I think the source of the materials and the sustainability of the source would be an issue that would bear further conversation. At the end of the day, these drugs either work or they don't. And it's like Coke and Pepsi. Okay, basically they're somewhat similar, and what really causes you to buy is not the compounds, but the branding and the sales power of the brand. And again, I think how you go about presenting it in the Philippines would be one thing, and it may well be a decent volume, good margin, efficient, effective medication. The moment you move outside the country, the guys who are selling the high-end pharmaceuticals are going to be watching. And one or two things are going to happen. They're either going to come after you with a patent suit, trying to figure out what these compounds are and whether they're protected or not. Or, and this is the interesting aspect, they'll look at you and decide that they want to buy the whole company. And so you're going to be faced with a rather interesting issue of success. Do you want to sell out to the big guys and take the money and recycle it back into the indigenous community and build and strengthen their understanding of the use of native materials? Or do you want to try and knock it out with the big guys, at which point you'll lose because they've got the horsepower. But in summary, I must tell you, this is my first trip here. I had no idea what I would find, and I'm going to be visiting a couple of universities. But these two products, I was very impressed, okay, with the ingenuity, with the fact that well, you're clapping for the products, right? You're not clapping for me making the comment, okay? I think comments on the presentations. When you make a presentation like this, you have to decide what you're attempting to do, whether you're either attracting investment, which means you have to talk about other aspects beside the product, the manufacturer, the market, the distribution, all that sort of thing, which is, Dan and I were talking that what on earth is he and I doing up here? It's the guys this morning from the venture groups that ought to be up here if indeed you're pitching to an investor. If what you're doing is talking about product definition and where you are in thinking through the business, that's fine too. And if that's the case, I think I was very impressed. Both presented well, focused on what they needed to do, and I think are both worth more time and attention to attempt to take them into the marketplace. You're applauding about the products, right? Not because of what I said, okay?
Okay, let me just comment on these two products. Being from the Intellectual Property Office, what struck me first, of course, are the names of the products. So the first one, I thought it was unplugged, although it's unplugged. It really catches someone's attention, although I'm not sure yet if it's registrable. Anyway, that's a good name. The other product, RBM, I'm not quite sure if it will really catch attention. It's rather, it's RBM. I don't even know. It was not explained where RBM came from. So the presentation would probably, although I'm not sure if I missed it, but it was not explained. Anyway, going back to the unplugged, I like the computation of the savings. It was clear, and there was an example of what one could buy with the savings, which is anybody can relate to that. Although I'm not sure what kind of appliance the presenter was referring to, because obviously you would not unplug a refrigerator. So if you unplug I'm not sure if that savings, well, just to put it straight, I'm not sure how the savings or which appliance would generate that much savings if you use the unplug. As to the second presentation, what was not clear to me was why there was a mention of exclusive rights or exclusive supply. If I was thinking that as the presentation said that the raw material was endemic to the Philippines, so there's some misleading fact or information. Well, I would also comment on the first presentation as some kind of misleading because of the reference to the savings, and I've explained that earlier why there was some vagueness in the presentation. But generally, as Mr. John Fraser said, these products are quite good, interesting, and hopefully, if they become successful here locally, eventually globally, we would like to see them. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for all your comments. Clearly, to answer your question there, John, yes, it was initially intended for the VCs to be here. But in reality, to me, I think both of you, Dan and John, do a great service to us in terms of being able to exactly say what you said, in terms of being able to critique openly and directly our scientists who have technologies again, and also have a product that they wanted to take into the business. I think this is a good representation of what you will see in the next couple of days, in the sense that there are probably several, I would call it, absence, still needing a lot of development, a lot of safety and clinical demonstration plus even trying to tap into the indigenous people social aspect of the product itself. I would have led with, would you buy something to cure your pain that has actually been provided or been available to indigenous people in the country that would help their livelihood if you had that choice, rather than buying it a Celebrex or a Biox? Yeah.
Let me add a point. I don't know about the audience here, but I found the presentation by the venture guys before lunch really dynamic, really exciting. I'm hoping mechanisms can be worked out that they can access and offer what they have offered, which is to access students and begin to explain, and then faculty and product opportunities. I'll tell you, at one point in my career, I was a venture capital professional, okay? I put on a suit and invested other people's money. And the point of being in venture capital is not to do good, but to make money. And so the ultimate question in any presentation is, if I invest in this, how am I going to make 7 times my money in a certain number of years? Okay? So I think to the two presenters, this is important to remember, that at the end of the day, having a worthwhile product is a good start, but in order to gather the financing to drive it into the marketplace, you're going to have to convince people that they can make money from it, and help them understand how exactly that happens through both the manufacturing, raising of and causing of sales, what the profit margin is, then the reinvestment in the next product launch or the next generation of product, and ultimately the value added in either a company or a license, so that if you invest at the stage which was presented to us, here's the pathway of following the nickels that you are going to invest. You will make your money at this point in this sort of order of magnitude. And I would suggest to both presenters, that's an important issue to keep in mind for if the presentation is to capture investment. Okay, that was it.
Actually, that's exactly what we've trained our KTTOs for, to be able to provide advice to inventors similar to Grace. We've had 6 universities participate in our knowledge transfer office that included the business planning stage, which actually Dan's group from RTI, Brandy and Jamie were here a month ago, exactly to touch on those subjects. I don't think they have gone through yet in the full valuation and the business planning stage. Well, not yet. Pat and Dan. Pat and Dan are the 2 members of that KTTO. But clearly there's still a gap. And that's what Stride is trying to actually address by training the KTTOs to be able to assist the inventors and the entrepreneurs coming out of the universities. And hoping that by the time the ITSOs or the KTTOs have worked with them, they're worthy of being listened to by the VCs that you saw early on in the program. Because at this point, even for me, I come from the entrepreneur side. I had a biotech company for 17 years. I had raised about $40 million in venture capital. I'm an entrepreneur, and I know what you guys, the VCs, like to hear. And we need to help them, the inventors here in the Philippines, to be able to get their elevator pitch within the first 30 seconds, as Dan said, capture their imagination within that first minute, and then be able to provide the supporting evidence even within the next 5 minutes on why I should even sit down with you to even look at your numbers later down the road. So I think it's a start. We have the training program for the ITSOs. That's what you guys, Danny and Pat, who are in the audience, have been trained for by Stride, and hopefully you would see more of these type of pitches as we go through. We'd love to work with IPOPHIL, definitely, and enhancing the 15 technologies that I've seen, the first 2 being presented here today. Definitely, we have a long way to go. Again, from all the things that we've seen here, from both the length of time, especially in the life sciences. I was a medical device development. I knew it was 3 to 5 years. More for active agents like Grace, you're looking at least 10 years and $100 million before you see the light of day and the revenue stream. But I think it's well worth the effort. I always tell people life science development is like a relay race. It's like a 4x400, 4x100. The universities are the first 100. The second would be the commercialization stage attracting venture capital. Then we probably get into a mid-level company that would take it to market and do the clinical for marketing. And then the big boys will take it in the last 100. So hopefully you'll be both here to help us, both craft the strategy, educate the educators, and be able to impart your combined more than 50 years in experience in venture technology development. So with that, I think I'll leave it up to Attorney Nelson to say the last words from IPOPHIL.
As Dr. Alice said, we have 15 more other pitches like this. And of course, we encourage more, we encourage the ITSOs to come up with more inventions. Actually, I myself have an idea, and I would like to approach one of you within the day. And keep it up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, since yesterday and today we have been talking about variously about increasing the innovation pipeline, technology, commercialization, we call it utilization, and industry, academe partnerships, collaborations. The next segment must be a fitting climax to all of this. We will have the Memorandum of Understanding between an ITSO host institution, the University of the Philippines, Manila, represented by its Vice Chancellor for Research, Dr. Eva Maria C. de la Paz, and Splash Corporation, one of the Philippines' leading personal care products companies, represented by its Vice President and Head of Innovations and Corporate Marketing Division. To explain to us what this MOU is all about, we may call on again on stage our very own Deputy Director General and Officer in Charge of the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, Attorney Allan Gepty. Sir.
Once again, good afternoon to everyone. First, let me state that when we organize this event synergy together with USAID and RTI International, one of the main objectives is to create a platform wherein industry, academe, and the government can collaborate and, of course, eventually work together. Because we do recognize that in the innovation ecosystem, that kind of partnership, that kind of collaboration is very critical. And we are fortunate this afternoon that we would be witnessing the signing of a memorandum of understanding between Splash Corporation, one of the innovative companies in the Philippines, and I would say one of the Philippine companies that was founded also on Filipino ingenuity and innovation. And of course, they have manifested their willingness to forge partnership with one of our ITSO member, UP Manila, to be to make UP Manila part of its research and development program. The trend right now, if you will observe not only in developed countries, but also in other developing countries, is that most companies, particularly multinational companies or even medium-sized companies, tend to cut costs with respect to R&D. But not because they have cut cost on R&D, they are not willing to go further when it comes to product development. One innovative way to expand research and development is actually to work with universities and RDIs. In other words, you have to make these universities as part and parcel of your R&D program. It is very expensive, very costly to set up an R&D division or R&D department. And of course, you have to hire scientists, researchers, and other experts that would help you develop certain products and processes. But if you have this vast network of universities thinking, studying, and working for you, you cannot imagine the variety and the huge range of products, innovations, ideas, and technologies that you can pick up. So, David, I think this is a good sign. Let's call it coincidence or synergy. But I think we're privileged that the timing of this forging of the agreement between UP Manila and Splash Corporation is symbolic enough, and I would say it's a sign also that we should continue this kind of activity. This is something that we should sustain, and hopefully in the years to come, we would be witnessing a lot of cooperations like this. Yes, we don't expect you to come up with a full blast commercialization of IP, but the fact that we see this kind of partnership is victory enough. Seeing industry and university working together is more than victory enough. And we just have to sustain this because we know that at the end of the tunnel, we will realize our goal. Again, maraming salamat po and congratulations to UP Manila and Splash Corporation.
Okay. After the signing, can we will just have a quick symbolic ceremonial exchange of folders between UP Manila with Dr. De La Paz and Miss Gamba of Splash Corporation. And then can we just have a quick photo op with UP Manila team and Splash Corporation team, and of course, if we can call in Dr. Dave Hall, and from IPOPHIL, of course, can we call in Attorney Laluces and our director Carmen Peralta to just come up on stage for just a quick photo op, just quick. Okay. Yes, please, Dave. Just a quick photo op, Dave, if you will oblige, please. Thank you very much, UP Manila, Splash Corporation, and of course, USH Tried, thank you. A fitting climax that was. Would you agree? Okay, now, wow, we've come to the day's end. No, no. Uh, yes, let's have a summary, a synthesis of everything that we have gone through since yesterday and today. And for that, we may call in the Deputy Chief of Party of USH Stride, Dr. Larry Ilag.
Good afternoon, everyone. Time does fly, and here we are almost at the end of the summit. So what we'll do is give a recap for day two and a bit of summary. So Dr. Richard Abindan already gave a recap of day one, so we're not going to do that anymore. So for starters, here are some statistics. We had at least 203 attendees with Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao represented. We have 41 ITSOs represented. Males and females are equally represented, so there's no gender disparity there. We had 145 people from the academe, 31 from industry, 3 from NGO, and 24 from the government. We saw video presentations of sample academe industry collaborations that we at Stride are working to build. So we saw 2 videos. The videos saw Dr. Parito's work with rubber fillers in collaboration with an industry partner. And then we also saw the electronic smart bike project between NIFTY and De La Salle. And these projects are funded by Stride. Then in the talk by Mr. Dan Winfield, entitled Managing the Innovation Pipeline, he emphasized that portfolio management should be aligned with the strategic mission of the institution and the KTTO. And in managing the pipeline, you have to continually assess and strengthen as opportunities arise 4 key areas, being technical potential, IP, commercial potential, and strategic importance. and you may have to look at commercial potential before filing patent applications. And he also emphasized that you have to seize the day. If there's an opportunity, you have to act fast because conditions change quickly and you have to get deals done. And make value-based decisions, and that's where the importance of knowing value propositions come in. Next, we heard from Attorney Gepty on exploring innovation through the IP system. We heard about the case of azithromycin developed in Croatia, which Pfizer, a large pharma company, found through patent searching and is now marketing. He also said that innovation is not instant, it's not mathematical, but it's about coming up with new solutions, identifying problems, creating needs and wants, and defining the future, and it's also about timing. Innovation does not need to be highly sophisticated. He also talked about the support services that IPOPHIL provides to ITSOs relating to things such as IP protection and IP utilization. He also talked about the IP depot, where ITSOs can showcase their inventions and the industry sector can upload their needs. So I do hope you take advantage of that. Then we had a panel discussion on the innovation pipeline in IP. Some of the ideas that came out of the session include get the faculty involved and ask what the product is that might come out of RD. That almost always is the first question in setting the tone for going forward and will inform a more focused patent search for prior art and patentability. And seeking IP protection is critical, and patents are weapons that you have to use, otherwise they will get dull. And in session 4, we heard presentations from the private sector and venture capitalists from Kick and Start, Plug and Play, Future Now, and Idea Space, what they look for and what they do. And they all do work with universities through career fairs, boot camps, and mentorships, which really is a good starting point to get your innovative ideas going. Then we had a panel discussion among the venture capitalists and investors, and some of the takeaways. Encouraging student entrepreneurs is important. Being an entrepreneur is not bad. Failure is okay. No need necessarily for a prototype for pitching to venture capitalists, but more important is the ability to execute. And venture capitalists are interested in funding ideas that potentially are high growth and with potential global impact. Then we had a pitching demonstrations from PUP on the phantom load blocker and from UP Manila on the natural anti-inflammatory, anti-pain health product. And some of the takeaways are don't be too technical, be clear on the financials, the costing, be clear on where it's going to be manufactured or distributed. And it's also important for the passion to come across, which our presenters clearly showed. And for the first 30 seconds, it's important to set the tone why the venture capitalists should hear the rest of the pitch. And then, of course, we just witnessed the MOU signing between the Splash Corporation and UP Manila, which, in Sir Adrian's words, is a fitting climax to what we are aiming to achieve with this innovation forum. So on that note, that's a summary of what happened in day 2, and coupled with what Richard Abendan described what happened on day 1 is a good summary of what this innovation forum is all about. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have the dubious privilege of giving closing remarks, and you've seen me often enough not to need an introduction. I want to ask you a question, first of all. Should we do this again next year? It's a deal. We will do it. It's there already, yeah? We'll do it. We'll improve. We'll take your comments, and we'll make it even better. This has exceeded my expectations, maybe more through luck than good management. But the feedback I've got is great. The IPOPHIL and STRIDE teams are energized by this. And I've been watching you as well, and I don't think I've ever been at anything where so few people have fallen asleep. And that's always a good sign. I'm just going to make a few remarks, not very long, because I'm conscious that if you get away, you could beat the traffic. And I'm one of the people who'd like to do that. So what we saw, We saw an MOU being signed about industry-academe collaboration. That's exactly what we're trying to make happen. We saw 2 products pitched out of a portfolio of 15 that IPOPHIL had been working on. And we got good feedback from some experts about what those products are really like. And so wherever the pitches are, that's pretty good going. There's room for improvement, but we've got the means here to do this. IPOPHIL help with this. The accelerators and investors we saw, they'll help you do this. So all the right things are happening. But if you remember what I said at the beginning, I said we want to increase opportunity, because next year I don't want 2 pitches. I want a parallel session with 15 or 20 pitches. And I want the VCs to be there watching, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to raise the volume of the opportunity. We might not make it next year, but say everybody's working together to make it happen. And so that's, I don't know if you realize, but that's kind of the path of the conference, the way that it's gone. We started off hearing about why we, as universities, you should work with industry. It's not just about research. It's what I say every time I get on a stage. It's about making friends. Only by making friends will you build trust and collaboration. So do as much as you can with industry. Internships, OJTs, curriculum development, site visits. And at the moment, we support nearly all of those through Stride. Be careful, though, we're halfway through Stride. We've wound up, we're going to start to wind down over the next 2.5 years. We heard about what the ITSO network is doing and how we in Stride are helping mentor them to become knowledge and technology transfer offices, the kind of places where John Fraser and Doug Hodgstad work in their US universities. And I would love to see those happening in the universities here. Just a word, we work with, I don't know, six universities, eight KTTOs, I think. They're there as models for you to copy. If we're not working with you, it's not because we don't like you, it's because we've got thinly spread resources. But all of our KTTO ITSOs are there for you to copy. And there's no patent or copyright on what we're doing, so you can copy and don't feel guilty. We want you to. We looked at the innovation pipeline, and from Dan, we saw some great tools and strategies for prioritizing ideas and projects and spreading risk and understanding what we need to do first and to have things commercially led. And we heard from the investors and the accelerators. And when people say there's no opportunity in the Philippines, these guys have loads of money. They complain to me there aren't enough things to invest in. And so the message to the universities is to get up, to do things, but also think about this. Energize the faculty, enable faculty. I know what the constraints are in terms of loading and deloading and things, but we're working on that. I know a state university who've just created the post of research faculty. And if they can do it, anybody else can do it. But also a great takeaway from yesterday was what De La Salle are doing, and Chris Cruz stood here and talked about how they're engaging their students. And there's another USAID project called IDEA. Jones Castro was here earlier, but they've actually got an event over at CHED today. In fact, I've been following it on Twitter, and they encourage student entrepreneurs. And so if you're not tapping into the IDEA project funded by USAID, then you could and you should. So, I should have numbered my pages, shouldn't I? Because I don't know what order they come in. It was always a challenge when I used to teach in the days of acetate slides. I was going to throw them all up in the air and pick them up in a random order and try and make a sensible lecture out of it. And my wish has finally come true. So to summarize, we've taken you through the route, if you like. I hope you've learned something. I've learned things. It's great. I try and learn something every day. And I hope you've learned something from the people who we've assembled. And so I'm going to conclude in a moment, but I want to give some thanks. Because I have to do that. But can I suggest that you clap at the end of the thanks? Otherwise, we'll be here for a long time. So I'm going to read out a list, and I'm going to tell you when to clap, yeah? I've got to find my list. I've got to thank USAID. The people of the United States of America fund what we do in Stride. And we haven't funded all of this because IPOPHIL have chipped in, and they've done things, and they've done a great job. But if without USAID, this wouldn't be happening here today. I'd like to thank IPOPHIL because we always wanted to collaborate with this. It's been a long time in the talking and the planning. But I'd like to thank everybody at IPOPHIL who's worked with us. DG Gepty's had to leave, I think, but the people we worked most closely with were Amalu and Adrian and their team. We got Adrian working the last 2 days. Director Peralta's here as well, and I'm not quite sure, I can't actually see who else is here because I've got a spotlight shining in my face. This wouldn't have happened without IPOPHIL. And I don't know who's here from other government departments, but I always say that IPOPHIL are the easiest government department for us to work with. And you can clap for that if you like. I want to thank Tech Talks. Tech Talks made all this happen, all the lights and the video and everything. They even had to take it all down yesterday because there was another event in here last night. They put it all up again this morning. But Tech Talks, Tina, Dulce, and their team, whilst they did this, Tina also made the VC, the Accelerator Investor Session happen, as well as moderating it. Without Tina, we wouldn't have got those people together as well. So Tina, wherever you are, thank you. You can clap at the end. All right, clap now. Where else am I? We had two really, really good speakers, I think, and they came from elsewhere in the world, and I'd like to thank them. So my colleague Dan Winfield from RTI International, as somebody said, Dan leads a great team of innovation advisors, and some of you will have encountered them. We're getting another one over in October, and we'll have them all the time. You can put them here all the time, Dan. But hearing Dan's wisdom, hearing what he's learned in his career is something we can all learn from, and it gives us all something to aim for. Dan is on a round-the-world trip. Tomorrow morning he heads east and completes a round-the-world trip, which was through the Middle East and Singapore and here. It took me 28 years to get around the world, but you did it in one trip. So thanks to Dan, and we'll continue to draw on his experience. John Fraser, he's not flown around the world, but John came from Canada, but that's not actually where he lives, even though he's from Canada. And so he arrived midnight Saturday night, and if it had been me, my head would have been on the table and I'd have been snoring. But he's been awake, he's been attentive, he's contributed, and I think he's passed on a lot of wisdom to us as well. I'm going to try and get John back. In the next few days, he's going to be visiting some of you, and you can either tell him what you're doing or you can download his brain, which is what he's here for. So thank you to John. Finally, I have the privilege of managing a great Stride team. We're all really busy doing our day job, and really this conference isn't our day job, but pretty much everybody on the Stride team contributed to this. And whilst I don't usually single people out, one person has been instrumental in this, and you've probably all had contact with her. If you replied properly to an invitation, and I know some of you didn't, you will have had contact. And so I'd just like to give a special thanks to Evie, who's over there. I wasn't sure she'd be there. I thought she might be outside organizing something, because that's what she does pretty much all the time. And so given all those people, the last people I would like to thank are all of you for coming, for showing interest, for showing enthusiasm, and we will do this next year. We're going to see you over the next 12 months, so thanks to you. You can give everybody on the list a clap, and you can give yourselves a clap as well. Thank you. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, for those of you asking for copies of the presentations, good news, we're gonna send you an email with a link to all the presentations soon. Thank you very much. Daghang salamat kaninyong tanan. Thank you, thank you.
Give it to me, I'm worth